A Louisiana officer is blaming Ford for a crash involving her police Ford Explorer. Ford engineers in Austin, Texas are repairing some 400 police vehicles over carbon monoxide concerns. The automaker released new images showing how the gas may be getting in. It says third-party modifiers may be creating holes in the SUVs to install police equipment.
Now, the overall investigation includes more than 1.3 million Explorers, but regulators say they lack clear proof of carbon monoxide. Kris Van Cleave is in Henderson, Louisiana, with new evidence that appears to refute that.
No, what was emergency? They just had a police officer go into a ditch in front of me.
In April, witnesses say this Henderson Police Ford Explorer slowly drifted off the road before flipping onto its side.
Brandy, when you look at your cruiser, what's going through your mind?
I don't know how I lived through that. I shouldn't be standing here today after.
Officer Brandy Sickey doesn't remember the crash, but the steering wheel is bent from where she hit it, and her hair is still in the windshield.
I drove into town. I drove where they had a bunch of people, and I got on the highway, and I don't remember any of that.
No recollection of it whatsoever?
None.
The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, is investigating thousands of reports of exhaust which contains carbon monoxide seeping into the cabins of police interceptors and civilian explorers. While NHTSA has received reports of 3 crashes and 41 injuries, investigators say so far there's no actual evidence they were the result of carbon monoxide poisoning. But medical records show doctors diagnosed Sickey with carbon monoxide poisoning. More than 2 hours after the crash, her blood still showed potentially dangerous CO levels. Summer Brown is Sickey's attorney.
There is no other source by which the carbon monoxide got into my client's system other than her vehicle, and NHTSA is aware of that.
The medical records Sickey shared also show the presence of medications that she says were prescribed. Doctors we talked to say they don't know if that could have contributed to the crash. Ford released these images of what it says may be allowing carbon monoxide to get into some police Explorers. Unsealed holes like this one by a vehicle's muffler or here along the rear spoiler, part of after-purchase work done by third-party contractors to install emergency equipment. But that does not explain the complaints of exhaust in civilian Explorers.
What kind of patrol car do you drive now?
2017 Ford Explorer.
Sickey is now back on the job and back behind the wheel of a police cruiser.
Does that make you nervous?
Yes, very. I have a carbon monoxide detector also in it, but every hour I want to get out the vehicle, walk around, and I think it's might be impacting my work because I never had to do that before, and I'm doing it now.
And Kris Van Cleave joins us now. Kris, does Ford have a point when it comes to these after-purchase modifications? Could they be contributing to these gas leaks?
Well, I am not a mechanic or an engineer, but it does seem plausible when you're looking at holes that have been drilled next to the muffler or towards the back of the vehicle in a place where, as the car moves, it creates a bit of what's sort of like a low-pressure system that can pull things into the vehicle. So it does seem like a plausible explanation for one way that carbon monoxide could be getting into the police interceptors. And we should tell you that Ford maintains that safety is its top priority. It is fixing police Explorers free of charge. They insist that the civilian Explorers are safe to drive. They opted not to comment on this particular case because of the pending litigation. Officer Sickey is suing Ford, and of course we're still waiting to hear from NHTSA.
Yeah, and the officer suing Ford was diagnosed with carbon monoxide poisoning. So how does that figure into evidence that there is indeed a problem in these cars?
Well, you know, that's one of those questions we've been trying to get answered. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration put out this update that said that they have no firm evidence to support that the crashes or injuries were related to carbon monoxide. But this is a case where there certainly does appear to be clear evidence of carbon monoxide poisoning after a crash, and no other explanation really as to how the carbon monoxide could have gotten into the officer's system. So we've been trying to get that answer from federal regulators, and the answer we have gotten so far is they'll get back to us.
So you say that Ford is insisting that this is a problem with police SUVs, not with civilian SUVs, but there have been similar complaints with civilian Explorers. So are they looking into that as well?
So the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and Ford are continuing to investigate not only the issues that have been uncovered with the police interceptors, but also we know of at least 2,700 plus complaints. The bulk of those are on civilian explorers reporting an exhaust smell or concerns of carbon monoxide in the cabin. Ford says they don't have solid evidence of carbon monoxide in the civilian explorers. They do acknowledge some have had an exhaust smell, and that investigation is continuing. We had a lengthy call with Ford yesterday where they briefed us on what they've been finding in the police explorers. We didn't get an answer, at least that answered, in my mind, an explanation as to what's going on with the civilian explorers. That investigation is continuing both by federal regulators and Ford. I should tell you they're also looking at cracks inside the exhaust manifold of some police interceptors that they've found during this investigation, and that the exhaust manifold is something that takes exhaust away from the engine towards the tailpipe. So there are some unanswered questions, and this investigation is continuing.
Yeah, we wondered, you know, when we saw your report, how it is that they are fixing the problem when they're still trying to actually identify the source.
Well, you know, so in fairness to Ford here, when they started looking at the police interceptors, they found work that had been done after the fact to install the light bars and the sirens, the things you normally see on the outside of the car. They found that some of those holes that had been drilled weren't ever sealed back up. And, you know, if you put a hole next to the muffler, well, that's where all the exhaust is coming out. It's plausible to see how that could get pulled into the vehicle. So Ford says that after they've made these fixes in Auburn, Massachusetts, for example, the department up there that pulled 10 off the streets, after they did these repairs, they saw the carbon monoxide levels drop significantly or to zero. So there does seem to be some merit, and that could be a factor in this. And, you know, cops spend a lot more time in their cars with the air conditioning running than most people do. So when you bring in a whole bunch of factors, it may be that the interceptors are more prone to this because of those aftermarket modifications and the way they're used.
Yeah, right. Indeed. Kris Van Cleave in Henderson, Louisiana. Thank you so much, Kris.
Sure thing.